Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you all to our West Orange Environmental Commission 2021 Earth Hour Booster event at the Edison Museum. That's the Thomas Edison National Historical Park right here on Main Street in West Orange. Susan McCartney, your councilwoman, and I will be your moderators for the event. We have a list of some great speakers for you to learn about Earth Hour and to hear about what they're doing to make our environment green. This event will be videotaped and will appear on our town cable stations. There are two of them, and it will be on the town website under the Environmental Commission section. It'll be given to the Board of Education to use as they see in the school systems. We submit it to the Earth Hour organization to use as they see fit, and we offer it to the electric news, e-news, and please watch for it and learn about Earth Hour. I am Mike Brick. I'm chairman of the Environmental Commission, and I'm co-hosting this event with Susan McCartney, who's our town coordinator, and she is a fifth-term councilwoman, and we'll be introducing the various speakers. So I would like to explain a little bit about Earth Hour. And we also want to thank the Thomas Edison Museum, and that's Tom Ross, Superintendent, and Karen Sloat Olson, Assistant Superintendent, for opening their theater to us, especially during COVID restrictions. There cannot be an audience in attendance, as in the past, but we will get our Earth Hour message out to our town as we have done in the past. We have a solid cross-section of speakers to educate us on their work in town and in New Jersey. Sue and I will introduce each speaker. We also will play the Earth Hour web images on the screen behind us. So let me explain briefly what Earth Hour is to you all. The history of Earth Hour. Earth Hour was started by the WWF, World Wildlife Fund, and partners as a symbolic lights out event in Sydney, Australia in 2007. Earth Hour is now one of the world's largest grassroots movements for the environment. Held every year on the last Saturday of March, Earth Hour engages millions of people in more than 180 countries and territories switching off their lights to show support for our planet. But Earth Hour goes far beyond the symbolic action of switching off. It has become a catalyst for positive environmental impact, driving major legislative changes by harnessing the power of the people and collective action. Earth Hour is open source, and we welcome everyone, anyone, to take part and help amplify our mission to unite people to protect our planet. The mission now and then. In 2007, we encouraged people around the world to switch off their lights to call attention to climate change. More than a decade later, the climate crisis remains much worse by another urgent threat, the rapid loss of biodiversity in nature. Natural systems are vital for all our futures, and yet the rate of global loss of nature during the past 50 years is unprecedented in human history. Nature not only provides us food, water, clean air, and other services worth over $125 trillion a year, it is also one of the strongest allies against climate change. Protecting nature is one of the most immediate, powerful, and cost-effective solutions to the climate crisis. Today, Earth Hour aims to increase awareness and spark global conversations on protecting nature, not only to combat the climate crisis, but to ensure our own health, happiness, and prosperity, and even survival. Earth Hour is doing something special this year for our COVID world. This year, as you switch off your lights on the night of Earth Hour on the 27th of March, we're dropping a must-watch video inviting you to take one simple action. Our goal: recreate the same unmissable sight online by taking over the social media feeds of millions around the world and putting the spotlight on our planet, the issues we face, and our place within it all. Let's get the world watching, and let's get the world talking. Take part of the Earth Hour virtual spotlight. A little bit of explanation about it. This is our first Earth Hour virtual spotlight. Over the years, the lights off moment saw entire streets, buildings, landmarks, and city skylines go dark. An unmissable sight that drew public attention to nature's loss and the climate crisis. Here in West Orange, you can go watch the skylights turn off on the New York skyline. About 75% will turn off at 8:30 at night, and it's very, very dramatic and effective. This year, amidst the current global circumstances, in addition to switching off your lights, we also invite you to raise awareness and create the same unmissable sight online so that the world sees our planet, the issues we face, and our place within it in a new light. How? It's simple. On the night of Earth Hour, March 27th, we'll be posting a must-watch video on all our social media pages, and all you have to do is share it. Share it to your stories or to your wall. Retweet it, send it via DM, tag friends in your comments. The choice is yours. Our goal is simple. Put the spotlight on our planet and make it the most watched video in the world on March 27th and beyond, so that as many people as possible hear our message. And you could follow it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So that gives you what's going to happen on the 27th on the website. The website is earthhour.org. Look it up, watch it, and participate. I would like to explain a little bit about why sharing Earth Hour matters. Later this year, world leaders will come together during key global conferences to set the environmental agenda for the next decade and beyond. Crucial decisions will be made on climate action, nature, and sustainable development. Decisions that will directly affect the fate of humanity and our planet for years to come. Happening just months prior, Earth Hour 2021 could be a spotlight moment that puts the state of our planet at the center of international conversations. Together we can speak up for nature and build the momentum and public awareness needed to push world leaders into action. A little bit about the history of Earth Hour. Earth Hour, as I said, was started in Sydney, and it goes well beyond what its original purpose was. It's a world event. It's watched by billions of people now in countries all over the world, and West Orange has been a participating township for many years in Earth Hour. So we ask you to watch Earth Hour and listen to how you can help on an hour on March 27th. Turn off all the unnecessary lights in your home. Sit and talk about how you can be different and be a solution to the planet, whether it be changing the lights in your house to LED, how you can save energy, how the house could be insulated. There's so many things, and you can learn from the Earth Hour website about how you can impact and be a positive change for the planet. So I would like to introduce Sue McCartney. And Sue, if you'll come up and introduce our first speaker, that would be great.
Thank you for joining us this year for our Earth Hour launch. In 2007, Earth Hour began as a simple act of turning lights off for 1 hour to conserve energy. This act started a global movement, and of course we knew even at that time that this simple act would actually end up shedding even more light on other local environmental protection acts. This is why we are here today. I believe the Thomas Edison National Historic Park right here on our main street serves as the perfect backdrop for the West Orange Environmental Commission to present the innovative ideas percolating in and around the township. This evening we will hear from our local leaders, organizations, instructors, and of course our students. Right now I would like to welcome the Superintendent of the Thomas Edison National Historic Park, Tom Ross, to welcome us. Thank you.
Welcome everyone, and so glad that we're again working with the West Orange Environmental Commission in commemoration and celebration of Earth Hour, an international program that helps us think about how we can help the environment and conserve energy and reduce our carbon footprint. As the superintendent of Thomas Edison National Historical Park and Morristown National Historical Park in Morristown, New Jersey, it's so important that we are mindful of our environment, that we think about conservation, and that everyone does their part. Of course, it's been a challenging year under COVID, and more of us are at home, utilizing resources at home. Kids are at home, and this is a great opportunity to work together as a family to see how you can help the environment by conserving energy and thinking about turning those lights off. So I encourage everyone to participate, and hopefully in the not too distant future, as we get through this COVID crisis that we're in, that we can welcome the public back into our buildings at the park here. But in the meantime, I wish everyone good health and Godspeed.
Thank you, Tom Ross, Superintendent of the Thomas Edison National Historic Park, and to Karen Sloat-Olson, our Chief of Interpretation and Education, and again for this allowing us to host this event here at the Thomas Edison National Historic Park. On our agenda, as I said before, there are so many things, not just turning lights off on Saturday evening at 8:30 to 9:30 for 1 hour. There are other things, actionable items that we are doing in the township. And I would like to introduce Mayor Robert Parisi talking about land conservation. Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you for having me here. Thanks to Councilwoman Sue McCartney for the introduction, and of course, Sue, for all that you've done for the environment and all our years working together in government. You have always been the go-to elected official on all issues related to the environment, and the township for that is grateful. Also want to thank Mike Brick for continuing this tradition. He said earlier it was 11 years. I was curious myself today how long we've been doing this, and that's a big commitment that Mike has made, not only to this event, but obviously that he continues to make in advising the commission and advising us elected officials and the residents of all the things we can do to protect our environment. So we're grateful to Mike for that. And of course, we want to thank Tom and Karen from the historic site. We recognize that this has been a difficult year, and we appreciate that your cooperative and willingness to welcome us here today, even though virtually, given this pandemic. And we obviously all look forward to seeing the historic site in all its glory in the very near future. Of course, I want to also acknowledge our Assemblyman John McKeon, who I do believe is here. Was not sure his schedule was going to allow, but besides being a former mayor and a resident and a friend to all of us, he is very often the most respected voice among the New Jersey State Legislature when it comes to environmental issues. He's been a leader for a long time in that, and we're all grateful for his contributions and his work in that area. I want to welcome our school superintendent, Dr. Scott Cascone, who's here, Meg Brill from the downtown, and so many other speakers we're going to hear tonight. And most impressively, I'm sure when you hear from them is the students from our school system who are doing really wonderful things, way far advanced than any of us were when we were their age, but very impressive, and I'm sure everyone's going to really appreciate and admire the work and conscientious work that so many of our students are doing. So they're going to talk about a lot of great things that they're doing for the environment. I really want to just focus on one in particular, and that's really more on conservation and preservation of land. I'm very proud to say that in the 11 years of my administration, this township has never supported or developed any undeveloped land. We have focused a lot of our energy, sometimes controversial, on redevelopment projects, but we have worked hard to preserve land whenever possible. We recognize that our township is largely built out, and those efforts are continuing. Efforts that started when John was mayor, and obviously always under the leadership of Sue and the Open Space Trust Fund, chaired by Sue's husband, Joe. So we've made great strides in trying to protect the undeveloped land, and we're still focused on some of this. And the first project that we're focusing some energy and hoping within the next year to have some results is the Crestmont Country Club. So Crestmont is one of the several golf courses in town, but unlike some of the other golf courses, they have a 90-acre tract of land contiguous to the golf course that is undeveloped, and they have kicked around the prospects of developing that a lot over the years, and they're looking to do that again now. We're working with the club. With the council support, we authorized appraisals of the land. We have appraisals. We're working with the club to see if we could work out some deal, either through acquisition or through simply rezoning that property to see that 90 acres is preserved now and into the future. The second tract of land has been talked a lot about in government over the last year or so, is a 12-acre tract of land that is on the corner of Ridge Road and Mount Pleasant. The council has had conversations and approved appraisals of this land. We've actually just requested new appraisals to be most updated, and we anticipate speaking with council members and the public probably at the next council meeting about the idea of preserving that 12 acres of land. And lastly, really what I want to talk about, and ironically it's fast how sometimes time goes and how often slow government can be, but I talked about it last year at Earth Hour, was the Rock Spring Country Club. We had at that time just been barely over a year into acquiring that course, and the very purpose of acquiring it was to protect the 140 acres. Not that we wanted to be in the golf business, but we didn't want to see that tract of land developed as a golf course nearly 100 years ago now. We're approaching that 100-year mark at 1923. We bought that to preserve it. And one of the promises that we made to the public and to the council at that time was to work with Green Acres at the state level to get money back and permanently deed restrict and preserve that land. Now, we haven't gotten there yet because we're trying to figure out some logistics of restructuring the course and trying to create some public amenities, which had always been our promise. But we're hopeful within the next month, maybe two, that with council support, we'll clearly define and subdivide the property, and we think we'll be able, of the 138 acres, we think we're going to be able to preserve roughly 128 to 130 as golf course, recreation space, and most importantly, undeveloped space, for all of eternity. So we're really proud that although a lot of this land is land that maybe many people drive by all the time and they don't think about, but we know that if we can do everything we can do to preserve what land we have left, then that's better not only for the residents today, but better for this community 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and well into the future. So on behalf of the township, I thank Mike and Sue and all the participants again in the Environmental Commission and all those here today for continuing this tradition and reminding all of us of the importance of protecting our environment. Thank you.
I would like to welcome Dr. Scott Cascone, Superintendent of our public schools. This will be his first year presenting here at the Thomas Edison National Historic Park, and I know how pleased and proud and impressed he will be when he hears the projects and ideas that the students present tonight.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Scott Cascone, and I'm the Superintendent of Schools for the West Orange Public School System, and it is with great pride and pleasure that I'm here this evening to speak in recognition of Earth Hour. I'd like to thank the West Orange Environmental Commission for the invitation to come and speak on behalf of the district of our almost 7,000 students and the families who we serve. What a place, what an appropriate place for us here to be celebrating Earth Hour than the Thomas Edison National Historical Park. It's a national treasure, it's a treasure for West Orange, and the namesake of this facility was a beacon for science, for development. But in the time since Thomas Edison lived, we've come to understand that with technology and with scientific developments comes the responsibility of managing not only those scientific achievements in order that they benefit our society, but also recognizing that if we're not conscientious about the way we use them, that promise and that benefit can go in the other direction. And we've seen that. We've seen that in our world. As a superintendent of schools, as a chief school administrator of a school system that is working with young people on a daily basis, it is a great privilege to do so. But we have a tremendous amount of potential in our walls, within our walls, and within our staff to instill in students. And later on in the program, you're going to hear one of our students, one of our middle school students, Mia Peretz, talk about her passion for science. We'd like to think that our school system played a part in instilling that passion and that interest in the subject matter, and also that passion and interest in environmentalism and sustainability. Our district, in addition to our classroom curriculum, is very excited to be engaging in partnership with the township and other community partners to pursue grants through the New Jersey Sustainable Schools initiative. It is an amazing opportunity for our students not only to get engaged in practical work, and that's really the hallmark of 21st century education. It's authentic, it's practical, it's real world based, and it really becomes a mechanism not only for students to, again, be active in their community, but also to engage with other partners and to really have that content come alive. It is a tremendously empowering and inspiring part of my job as a superintendent of schools to know that we have the potential and the power to really be turning out students that are going to be emissaries for environmentalism. And as these are the students whose world they will inhabit moving forward, they bring amazing inherent and intrinsic motivation to pursue these endeavors. So really it's just a matter of us giving them the wings to fly, so to speak, in the classroom to do it, because they bring that inherent interest to do it. So again, on behalf of the West Orange Board of Education, the administration, our staff, and our families, wish you all a happy Earth Hour. We encourage you to observe this hour, to turn off those lights, to turn off that power, and to be reflective about how our footprint, our carbon footprint, our electric footprint on a daily basis impacts the world. And that each and every one of us, if we put together that chain and are conscientious about what we're doing, we will make a difference, and we do really need to make a difference for our children and generations to come. Thank you.
I would like to introduce a special speaker who has been with us for many years and is honoring us with his presence again. That's Assemblyman John McKean. John is an ex-mayor of West Orange, and he is now our 27th District Assemblyman down in Trenton, and he is also a champion of our environment. He has served as chairman of the Environmental Commission, and he again is extremely active with the Environmental Commission, and they have just passed some major legislation for the state of New Jersey, making us one of the first in the country to have a plastic bag law that we can no longer use plastic bags. Recently, John sent out a letter to his constituents along with a reusable bag, and I'd like to read part of the letter so that we all understand the type of work that John is doing and how dedicated he is to the environment and making it as green as possible. So here is the letter. New Jersey has once again emerged as a national leader on environmental policy. We enacted the Clean Energy Act, which expanded renewable energy sources like solar and wind, established a permanent funding source for open space preservation, and passed the Flood Defense Act. Most recently, we enacted a landmark environmental justice legislation which will reimagine the way we evaluate permitting processes on facilities that are located in our environmentally overburdened and disproportionately impacted communities. I would like John to explain what they've been doing down in Trenton to us. And John, please come up and tell us more about your work.
Mike, thank you so much for your gracious introduction, and thank you, Mike Brick, for being the chairman of the Environmental Commission for all of these years, working with Councilwoman McCartney and all of the great members for the things that just continue to happen, and thank you for making my hometown, make me very proud of my hometown, in part because of you and your efforts. As it relates to the years that have passed, I can't believe, as I stand here in this repository of all of the Edison historic papers and the place where the world changes, that it's 22 years ago when I was a brand new mayor. First Lady then, Hillary Clinton, came to this site as a part of her Treasures Tour. And with that, Jack Welch of General Electric was here, and he literally filtered millions of dollars that went to just turning this place from what was getting to be a little bit older and tired, notwithstanding its history, into an interactive museum for the whole world to enjoy. 22 years goes quickly. And look what we've happened in the last number of years. Notwithstanding that every bit of information ever accumulated by man can now be somewhere on a little head of a pin inside of this phone, it's still about what people do and the consequences. As if we learned nothing else through this COVID emergency over the last year, there's a natural environment that's out of the control of all of us. And we know that the way that we've fouled our nest is such that we have to turn it around and we have to make a difference. And that's what Earth Hour is about. It's about conservation. It's about innovation. It's about plastics and reuse. It is about renewable energy. It is about the whole composite of what we can do to make a difference. You know, I'm not that smart, I'm no environmental scientist, but when there's more plastic in our ocean than fish, you know that it's time that we need to do something about that. And again, I am so optimistic, whether it's from the efforts of the West Orange Environmental Commission, right through not only our federal government, but our world leaders as they get together, hopefully to reinvigorate the Paris Accords and alike, that we have all learned that it's time. It is our time, and our efforts count. I'm going to be a grandfather. Come July, I'm going to have a baby granddaughter that's coming into this world. And so as much as I've always had a passion for the environment, my own reinvigoration, understanding that there's a world, forgetting about my daughters and son-in-law, but that little girl yet born is going to inherit, motivates me even more. And it should motivate each and every one of us. With that, God bless this town and this great nation, and let's make a difference and make the world greener.
Also this evening for tonight's program for Earth Hour, we have a West Orange Environmental Commission member for many years, our town forester, John Linson, giving a presentation of the newly amended Township Tree Ordinance requiring tree care experts when any tree work is done in town. John?
Hi, this is John Linson. I'm the Township Forester, and I'm happy to be a participant in Earth Hour this year. There's been a number of interesting events that have occurred in the last year since the last time I was here. One of it, the major thing is we've changed our tree ordinance. There were some issues, and as a result, we sent out over 100 letters to tree removal contractors that could be working in town. We now require that they be registered with West Orange in order to work here. So if you go on the township website and where it says, how can we help you, scroll in shade tree, and you'll see copies of our ordinance. We now require that there is an exemption clause when you don't need to get a permit, but then if you're going to exercise that, you need to file a report 5 days prior to removing a tree, so at least we know who's removing trees and when the tree removal is occurring, so we can monitor it. Unfortunately, we've had some issues with insects and disease problems, and consequently, the emerald ash borer is the most devastating problem we have, where we anticipate that maybe up to 5 to 10% of West Orange's entire tree canopy will be destroyed by this emerald ash borer that was brought in on shipping crates from China. Another recent problem we have is spotted lanternfly. And usually by the time you see the problem, it's the adults that are congregating on the trunks of the trees, and they've already done their damage. But it's a very colorful moth-like creature that you'll see, and you say, oh, how pretty, but they basically are kind of omnivorous, and they'll attack almost anything. So anyway, just to be on the lookout for those two problems. Also, you know, the town has come under scrutiny about the reasons why we remove trees, particularly in the right-of-way. And we do have a written policy on tree removal. And basically, the reason we remove trees is that the tree is dead. 20 to 30% of the tree crown has declined and it's aesthetically unattractive, or the tree has structural deficiencies, or the tree has been repeatedly cut back by public service. Many of you have received this as a door knocker in advance of public service coming through doing the required pruning, 4-year circuit of pruning. And of course, the way that public service prunes a tree is not the way we would like to see our trees pruned. They use directional pruning and they V out the section of the tree, and it makes it unsightly and unbalanced. And then sometimes it's road reconstruction projects that in replacing curbs and sidewalks, we have conflict with the tree roots. And if roots have to be cut and the tree cannot be made safe, then we elect to remove it and replace it. If possible, if someone really wants us to preserve a tree, there are alternatives, but that usually means curving a sidewalk around a tree, leaving in an old curb without disturbing the tree. And one of the reasons we have these conflicts is that basically the wrong tree was planted there originally. We follow this guide that's published by the New Jersey Shade Tree Federation, Trees for New Jersey Streets. And this defines appropriate species of trees to be planted between a sidewalk and a curb, depending upon whether it's 30 inches or 60 inches. It also helps you select species of trees that are accommodated under wires, that won't grow into the wires and become a problem. So, it usually amounts to we're planting more compact related species along the street than some of the older shade trees. It's been the older shade trees, these particularly pin oaks, that have been very susceptible to problems with in storms. And also there's a bacterial leaf scourge, which is spread by leaf hoppers, and it kills pin oak trees over a period of a couple of years. So we've been losing a lot of our pin oaks. We had about 900, according to my calculations, but every year we're removing some of them. The one thing they teach you in forestry school is trees are a renewable natural resource. Trees, like people, have a natural lifespan, and there comes a time when a tree may be still physically alive, but it's functionally not appropriate for that spot. And some of the tree species have a normal lifespan of 25 to 50 years. These oaks that we have are now about 100 years old. But it's a very unnatural place to grow a tree. A tree wants to be in the forest where the leaves are falling down and decomposing and going back into the soil. And everybody knows that trees are part of the solution to global warming. They take the carbon out of the air and give us back oxygen. And of course, if we can control the amount of carbon that's being released in the atmosphere, that's another control for climate change. But trees are definitely part of the answer. So let's see. The good news is that Arbor Day is coming and Earth Day is coming, and the town is distributing seedlings behind Town Hall on April 22nd, which is Earth Day, and Arbor Day, April 23rd. We have white oak seedlings, white flowering dogwood, eastern white pine, and sugar maple. Now these seedlings are bare root. They're not in the tubulings like we've had before, so you'll be receiving them in like a wet paper towel, and we'll be distributing instructions on how to plant them. Sometimes putting them in a container and growing them in a controlled situation is a good idea till they get up to be a certain size, and then you can plant them. But you know, most of these trees will grow to be quite large, so you don't want to plant them right up against your house and have a conflict down the road. But so I mean, that's basically what I have to share with you. And you know, in order to control the removal of trees, as I said, we sent letters out to all the contractors. We make them register with us, so we have a handle on what's going on. And you know, whenever a tree is removed, it's an opportunity to replant. But you know, what's happening is, you know, sometimes people have 5, 10, 15 or more of these ash trees that are dying from emerald ash borer, and now we don't require that they replace them, but you know, the loss of these trees is a significant reduction in West Orange tree canopy coverage. So we encourage people to replace a tree, and you can dedicate a tree on Mother's Day, Father's Day, a birthday. There's many reasons to plant a tree, but the best time to plant a tree is today. So that pretty much concludes what I have to share with you today, and I hope you enjoy the trees that we do have in town. We take a lot of pride in our street trees, and of course we have the reservations at our disposal. People come to West Orange to visit the trees. So with that, I say adieu. Thank you.
I'm very excited to introduce our Stevens Institute of Technology students in the graduate program, and to thank Professor Dibs Sarkour, the professor of that department and a resident here in West Orange, for introducing me to this team to put together the sustainability management plan for the team. So for tonight's program, we have Stan Goodman, Marco Palladino, and Greg Wu, part of the sustainability management plan, presenting this evening, which also includes, our team includes Nazreen Aker and Gabe. So welcome, students from Stevens Institute.
Hi, I'm Marco Palladino. I'm with the Stevens Sustainability Master's Program, and I'm working on the West Orange Sustainability Management Plan. Next slide. I'd like to introduce, we have Nazrin, Gabriel, Stanley, myself, Greg, and Councilwoman Susan, who's here, that helped us kind of get this project started. Next slide. Stanley. The purpose of the West Orange Sustainability Management Plan is to establish a route for long-term economic resiliency, strong community, and environmental health. The plan must be doable and affordable. Areas of focus will be waste, water, energy, greenhouse gas emissions, transportation, stakeholder equity, and land preservation, aligning with Sustainable Jersey's framework. So we have the population of West Orange at around 50,000, with it growing from around 3% every year from 2010 to 2019. A low poverty rate with a high elevation compared to the other oranges, and a square mileage of around 12 square miles with a mostly white population. And I'm going to hand it off to Stanley.
Thank you, Marco. This is a 2019 map of West Orange showing land use by color. Several town leaders, Susan McCartney, Joe McCartney, Lenny Lepore, Megan Brill, and Mike Brick spent hours showing us West Orange, and they will spend more hours helping us understand West Orange now and as they see it in the future. We saw different land use challenges, traffic tie-ups and difficult pedestrian crossings, which tend to divide towns into segments. So better connectivity between West Orange sections and between residential, commercial, and recreational areas is one goal. We learned about West Orange's outstanding open spaces. The hope for their equitable preservation has become another key goal. We recognized golf courses' important role as part of West Orange's tax base. Maintaining that is another goal. Next slide, please. Methodology is a key part of what we have to do. Management plan. One of the skills we develop at Stevens is project management. Before coming to conclusions, it's important to assess what's the situation now and what do we want it to be down the road. Then we identify the steps to get there from here. Sustainability, like a municipality, is ongoing and ever-changing. So the sustainability management plan we provide must become a living document with ongoing feedback and improvement. Key considerations are straightforward. We're here to meet your goals. Since it's your town, we and West Orange leaders want all the public participation and feedback we can get. And nothing goes anywhere if it doesn't fit in the budget. Last on this slide is primary tools. Don't reinvent the wheel. West Orange and New Jersey have many studies and plans we can draw on. The West Orange Master Plan, Downtown West Orange Alliance Guidelines, West Orange Survey of Older Adults, and more. Sustainable Jersey is an organization dedicated to environmental and social health. They provide a rating system which West Orange already is part of. Social engagement is community buy-in. We want you involved. And active feedback, I already mentioned. Next slide, please. Learning lists the categories on which we'll focus. Land use is associated with zoning, for example, commercial and residential. Water and wastewater. These days, water tends to be thought of as one great single area of study because all forms connect and interact. Then there's transportation, of course, energy, waste, and economy. Thank you very much. Next will be Greg.
Thank you very much, Stanley. So I'm Greg Goel. Based on our finding, we have identified several key issues and determined specific indicator and success criteria based on its category. Walkability and pedestrian safety have been a high concern for West Orange to implement. That will fall into the category of land use. Stormwater runoff at the lower level of West Orange, based on its elevation, has also been a concern that we are looking at. Transportation, we want to focus on implementation of green fleet and EV plants, and GHG emission, also known as greenhouse gas emission inventory, is part of the requirement or the goal for Sustainable Jersey that has not yet been implemented in City of West Orange. For energy sector, a success scenario will be having energy efficiency measured, implemented, and increase energy production that are from renewable sources. Waste management, we want to promote waste tonnage report and engage residents on waste diversion. Social, we want West Orange to increase their stakeholder engagement through improved websites, social media, and technology. Lastly, economical, we want to promote redevelopment to include various type of housings and to make sure the multifunction. Next slide, please. So based on our study, we have determined a few gaps for City of West Orange to be successful and achieve previous success scenarios. First, currently West Orange does not have a GHG inventory, which I have mentioned earlier, and there is a lack of federal and state incentive because City of West Orange do not want to do something that's going the other way from the federal instruction and do the work that are not necessary and not worth the tax dollar. Next, regulations. Regulations is an issue that happens in most of in most of the county, and it has been a restriction, or not a restriction, it has been a constraint for most of the cities. And on top of that, West Orange also doesn't have. Well, there's a lack of public involvement, and there also has not been a sustainability coordinator that has been in place and dealing with the specific issues. And lastly, and most importantly, there is a budget constraint. Back to the first slide, please. Like City of West Orange want to make sure that all of their tax dollar will be at the right place and benefiting the public, and it will be our mission to make sure that we in the City of West Orange will have a well-developed sustainability structure, and that will constructing a guideline. Next slide, please. So our sustainability management plan will mean to provide understanding of sustainability issues. We, based on our data collection, tours, and interviews, we'll have assessment for current situations, and we'll assess this information and generate feedbacks into our report for different issue categories. We will. Secondly, we'll deliver a project management guideline for sustainability and define specific indicators and metrics that for City of West Orange they could focus on and they could measure. Lastly, we'll provide a list of resources for City of West Orange to go. So this will not be just be a short-term implementation just for the current situation, but also for a long-term solution. We'll in our report we will provide companies that city can go to, or government support and the resources that are available that city can go to, and work with others, and then continue the long-term sustainability. And that will conclude our presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
At this time, I would like to introduce our next speaker. We have an amazing facility here in Essex County, the Essex County Environmental Center. It's on Eagle Rock Avenue in Roseland, and I recommend that everyone go and visit it. We have a director who is speaking today and has spoken in previous years here at our booster event for Earth Hour. Heather Amendolara is a senior member there and a resident of Livingston. She will tell us more about what's going on at the center, and please avail yourselves of the services of this amazing facility. Heather, come on up.
Hi, thank you, Mike. Thanks for having us. Again, my name is Heather Amendolara, and I'm visiting you from the Essex County Environmental Center, otherwise known as the Nature Center. Essex County Environmental Center is located in Roseland, New Jersey. We are in the West Essex Park system. We're right up against the Passaic River as well. If you haven't visited us, you should. So I want to say thank you for having us here at our Earth Hour Booster. This is excellent, a great opportunity for us to showcase some of our events, activities, and upcoming events and activities, contests, and the like, and also talk about this event as well. We attended last year's event was with some of our local West Orange High School students. We're promoting some of their sustainable and dynamic solutions to some of our environmental problems. We were really, really very thrilled to be able to see that in the works, as well as some of the middle schoolers were here presenting as well. It was an amazing presentation to watch. It was exciting, it was great, and it was special to see our young people in motion as far as it goes for our environmental causes. So with that in mind, you should know our Essex County Environmental Center mission includes working with young people, connecting young people to nature primarily. But we also work with adults and volunteers, and we are part of our community and a community organization that's available as a resource as well. So our past events at the environmental and activities includes things like our Earth Day event, an all-day event in the past where we had numerous families visit. We had vendors and activities and crafts all centering around some really great nature activities while walking the grounds. Our grounds are located on a deciduous wetlands, and that is a nice experience for some of our Essex County visitors and guests as well. We've had Fall Fest, Buzz Fest to celebrate our local honeybees, Butterfly Tent Safari. We've had contests, our Essex County Photo Contest, where we award prizes to amateur photo opportunists who come in and take pictures in our park system, Essex County Park System, the oldest county park system in the nation. We've had contests for sustainable gingerbread house building in the past, camps, clubs, scouts come for adventures and badge requirements and volunteering opportunities. We've had field trips, nature-themed birthday parties even, and we are always happy to work with our community. Our current offerings, of course, due to our recent circumstances, we've made a few changes, and we've definitely managed to adapt, and gratefully we've adapted with keeping our mission and our theme both present. We are offering nature-themed boxes with crafts, activities, and education for young people to work on, whether they're home or traveling or anything that they can't get to the environmental center. We're offering virtual field trips as well. We have our camps and our family nature walks. Most recently, our family nature walks have allowed a lot of our families, local families, to come and visit the center and walk the grounds and realize the significance of what we do, and they've got to see it firsthand. Our Earth Day activities are going to take place throughout the month of April. We're going to have eco art and frog pond visits, wild edible walks, and even an Arbor Day celebration throughout the last week in April. Just to highlight one of our recent contests, we're going to have our garbage contest. It's all made by local people with using recycled materials, which is really fun for us. We get to see everybody's creative side. We get to see our friends and the people local to us enter our contest with sculptures and items that would otherwise have gone into our local landfills, and see what they come up with. That's also one of our great contests coming up. Just to kind of promote again the success and the gratitude we show for the Earth Hour booster mission, I just want to say on behalf of the Essex County Environmental Center and myself as the naturalist and educator there, we just want to say thank you for having us here to promote what we do, so we can all kind of enjoy what we have here. So again, this is the end of my portion of the presentation. Thank you so much for having us.
Good evening. Thank you to our good friends Susan McCartney and Mike Brick for their longtime support of environmental education in the West Orange School District. My name is Pete Ficuciello, and I'm an environmental science teacher at the West Orange High School, and I've served on many district committees to further the causes of sustainability, health, and safety. I am here to announce that Sustainable Jersey for Schools recently awarded West Orange High School with a $10,000 grant to fund its West Orange Innovations in Sustainability projects. These 3 projects, artificial floating islands, vertical farming, and a solar bus shelter, will all be completed within our environmental science, sustainable technologies, and engineering courses. We are excited to complete these projects because they not only will serve to educate our students, but they will also help foster a better understanding of sustainable concepts to the West Orange community. This video was created to highlight those projects and was recently shown at the Sustainable Jersey for Schools virtual awards ceremony. Thank you.
The West Orange Green Team is proud to announce the West Orange Innovations in Sustainability grant-funded projects from Sustainable Jersey for Schools, which includes 3 projects that promote solutions to environmental problems. The Artificial Floating Island Project will engage students in hands-on learning, where they will be testing a local water source to determine the severity of pollution. Students will then design and fabricate the islands to float the plants. The water would be tested again to determine the effectiveness of the floating islands' bioremediation. Students, staff, and community members already received training on the benefits of floating islands, how they work, and how to build them. We will be floating these islands in a pond right next to our school. Our futuristic farming project addresses one of the largest environmental issues we face today, which is industrial agriculture. The environmental science students have learned about vertical farming and how to grow food indoors in controlled climates. With the funding provided by Sustainable Jersey for Schools, students will design, build, and maintain a scalable indoor farming operation whose goal is not only to educate students on industrial agriculture, but also to provide nourishing vegetables to the school's food classes, as well as underserved communities. The solar bus shelter idea began when 2 student athletes enrolled in our Engineering and Design Solutions course identified the problem that there is no shelter or place to charge their phones outside the school at night. They designed and constructed a solar bus shelter prototype that was recognized by New Jersey Assemblyman John McKeon for their work and received a ceremonial resolution from the New Jersey State Senate and General Assembly to honor their work. With a tremendous amount of community collaboration and support, the school was able to acquire an old New Jersey Transit bus shelter to improve upon the original prototype. Students began to disassemble and clean the shelter, removing all the broken panels, which allowed them to repaint it. Vector graphics were created for the shelter, which included the school mascot, our school logo, and a map of West Orange. Panel engraving has begun and will be completed next school year. With the funding from Sustainable Jersey, we will finally be able to purchase the essential parts for the shelter, such as the charging station, solar lighting, roofing materials, and additional replacement panels. The West Orange Innovations in Sustainability will educate students and our local community on the importance of environmental sustainability and the impact it has on the future of not only New Jersey, but our entire planet.
So for many years, the West Orange Environmental Commission has had a student representative from West Orange High School from the Fight for Green team. And it is the president of the Fight for Green team, Riya Goel. Riya Goel is a senior. She will be graduating this year, and she has been very busy having a book published on Gen Z. So she is here this evening to talk about the content of that material. We also have the current student representative from Fight for Green, Spanfordor Mura, to talk about the Green Amendment legislation, and Marissa Edelman, the writer for the West Orange Pioneer, to talk about the Green New Deal. So we welcome the Fight for Green team.
Hi everyone, my name is Riya Goel. I'm the co-president of the Fight for Green Club, and my presentation here is on Gen Z and climate change. So a little bit about me. As I said, I'm a senior. I started the fencing team and the Girls Up Club. I also started Meatless Mondays, which is a district-wide program. As I said, I'm the co-president of the Fight for Green Club. And recently I authored the Gen Z book, which will be coming out next month. And I'm a former researcher and research director at the Princeton Student Climate Initiative, and also the former policy director at the New Jersey Student Climate Advocates. And I'm a girl advocate at the Working Group on Girls at the United Nations. So definitely a little bit about me, but my presentation, as I said again, is on Gen Z, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about why Gen Z cares so much about climate change and why it's such an important issue to our generation. Next slide, please. So who is Gen Z? We were born from 1997 to 2012, which makes us around 9 to 24 years old. We are the largest and most diverse generation to date, and we're internet natives, which makes sense because we use the internet to pretty much promote social good and to go off on our passions. And we really use the internet as a tool for social good, for social change. And that's something that is so unique to us as a generation. And so that's what makes us really special and what we use as our primary tool in climate change. Next slide, please. So some basics with climate change and Gen Z. So Gen Zers recognize climate change as a really big issue. According to a Future of Humanity survey, over 10,000 8 to 25-year-olds across 22 different countries reveal that 41% of the respondents cited global warming as the most important issue of the world to date. And so it is one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It's number 13, and it's really just a big pressing issue for our generation. We know that we have to make a massive, massive change in order to stop it and to make strides for our generation and the generations to come. And if you don't believe in climate change, think about it in terms of resources. We won't have clean water in the future. We won't have places to live or really any resources in general if we don't take action now. So if you don't believe in climate change, just think about it in terms of resources and fight for those resources that you want to see future generations having. We've taken action and calling on world leaders already. We've seen Greta Thunberg, we've seen the movement Fridays for the Future. We're really active and passionate about climate change and want to make a change. Next slide, please. So some of the new policy that's out there already, kind of accelerated by Gen Z and millennials, is the Green New Deal, which was put forth by Ed Markey and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's a wholesome policy. It's not just for climate change, concerning resources, but also racial inequality and other intersections of climate change. It's a really wholesome policy, as I said, and it's not to be confused with the Biden plan. Gen Zers want to make change and want to see this change in policy and want to follow that through. So the goal of the Green New Deal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in order to avoid the worst consequences of climate change. And it says the entire world, and the US being a leader in it, needs to have zero emissions by 2050. It calls on the federal government to dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions and create high-paying jobs, ensure that clean air and clean water are accessible, affordable, and actual resources that everyone can access. Other policies that Gen Zers are advocating for are things like plastic bag bans. We've seen that in New Jersey happening already, and also want to see a lot more awareness in their towns, in their communities, and people really just caring about climate change as a real issue. Next slide, please. So Gen Z recognizes that, climate change is multifaceted, and this means looking at it through a lens of intersectionality. For those of you who don't know what intersectionality is, it's kind of my brand, but it's pretty much the interconnectedness of all issues. So if you take an umbrella issue like climate change, you're able to intersect those issues with other issues like racial inequality or water injustice or land rights. So those issues intersect with a broader, more umbrella issue like climate change. So some of the things that we're more concerned about as Gen Z is racial and indigenous lens. So my friend is actually suing the Canadian government for inaction on climate change, and as a land protector, as an indigenous youth. There's a lack of resiliency in minority communities that are living very close to oceans and close to areas that are going to be directly hit by climate change in the next 20, 30 years. And so we need to kind of take charge on that. We need to take action on gentrification, on other issues that intersect again with climate change. There's a food lens. So we're, as Gen Zers, very passionate about meatless lifestyles, with veganism and vegetarianism really taking strides and taking front space. Something that's a really big trend for Gen Z is oat milk, and the reason is, of course, the environmental impacts of oat milk, but also being healthier for you. And so this multifaceted, again, approach is really something that is unique to Gen Z and something we promote. That can even be in terms of the food that we're growing. We want it to be natural, non-pesticides, organic. When it comes to fashion, that's another thing. We want to hold ourselves as consumers accountable. You know, when we want to see where our clothes are coming from, how they're being made, the people that are making the clothes, and really just, you know, want to feel good about the clothes that we're wearing and want to be aware of where they're coming from. Next slide, please. So this kind of leads beautifully into consumerism and environmentalism. So we do put our money where our mouth is. We buy ethically made, sustainably made clothing. We're into thrifting a lot, so we're reducing our carbon footprint through many lenses. We also are very into electric cars and looking for innovative products that, you know, really incorporate a sustainable component to reduce our carbon footprint at the end of the day and incorporate sustainability. Next slide. So we're aware also of the connection between humanity and nature. So we know that the movement of food is really present for Gen Zers, and movement of food being our natural medicine, and kind of going back to ancestors' roots and going back to, you know, where we came from. So new trends again of vegetarianism and veganism are front and center for Gen Z. We're more sustainable in terms of our food and wellness as well. We're more aware of it. We're aware of the carbon effects of the meat industry. And again, oat milk is a big thing for our generation. Next slide, please. So we do have the solutions for climate change because it's a big issue for us. Gen Z is going to be at the forefront of climate change because we care. We want to invest in things like girls' education, because girls know the ancestors' knowledge. They are aware of the way that their ancestors took care of the land. And so that's a great way to kind of invest in communities as well as girls' education. And so that's an intersectional approach that's unique to Gen Z and something that's new and innovative. We're also working with unconventional resources. So have you heard of things like algae biofuels, or, you know, plastic bags made out of actual plastic bags? So we place sustainability as a focus for pretty much everything that we do, and want to move forward with innovative solutions towards sustainability. And we want to reuse as well. So plastic, we want to go away from plastic water bottles and to reusable water bottles, reusable straws, really again just reducing our carbon footprint. Slide please. Another really big unique feature of Gen Z is that our career choices are affected because of the climate. And so whether that be wanting more financial security and a higher financial status because we know that climate change doesn't affect the wealthy, or, you know, actually really going into climate change and taking charge on it in our careers. So environmental engineers, lawyers, environmental scientists, going into legislation, energy scientists. There's a lot of different careers that are open for Gen Zers because of this need for action on climate change. We're also aware that humanity and nature are deeply connected and want to explore this intersection in our careers as well. Next slide, please. And like I said before, we really want to see people in our community and really people in general caring more about the climate. We want to see a call for action in terms of climate curriculum in schools, you know, where our future generations are being taught, where we're being taught. We want to call for action in terms of CEOs and companies to take a stance on climate change and what they're doing to become more sustainable in the future, whether that be their operations, the actual products. We just want to see a call and action in terms of sustainability. We also want to call for more cleanups and more action in our communities to, again, just take a stand, be aware, and be present in taking action on this issue. Next slide. So this is just a quick glimpse into Gen Z. There's a lot more. If you're more interested, read my book. But there's really just a lot more to learn. We are just getting started in terms of climate change, and we've seen a lot of impact already. When you can see that through Greta Thunberg, through the Green New Deal, we're really taking charge and we want people to listen. And so the best way to work with Gen Z is through intergenerational equity and through really just working with Gen Z to create around solutions that would benefit both sides and all generations. There doesn't need to be a generational divide, but there really just needs to be more intergenerational unity, and I think that's really the goal here. So thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Marissa Edelman. I'm a senior at West Orange High School, and I'm co-president of Fight for Green Club. I'm also a part of Mentor Mountaineers, and this year I began helping organize a group called Lunchtime Mentors that helps the students, it helps mentors socialize after school with members of the special needs classes, which is a really great experience because for myself, I really love to help the world around me, which is one of the really big reasons that I'm so invested in the environment and sustainability. So I'm also next year going to be going to University of Maryland College Park, which I'm really excited about. I'm considering right now between a psychology major and communications because I love to write. You can find my writing at The Pioneer, where I write for our school journal, and I also write for an outside news source called Newspective, which is a news source that is written by Gen Zers by Gen Z, which is fairly new, and it was started by an NYU student. I also really enjoy creative writing, and I take creative writing as an elective this year, where I'm right now working on a really cool project. And I also recently won a topical award in Just Poetry contest. So I guess now it's time to get to the speech. So this year I learned the true meaning of finding beauty in the world amongst the darkness. Although it was a lesson I was subconsciously learning my entire life, with the free time I have now with the pandemic, I have been able to reflect on my childhood as I now emerge into adulthood. My favorite place in the entire world as a child was my sleepaway camp, Camp Mason, in Blairstown, New Jersey. I think it was my favorite because I was able to notice the way the sun reflected onto the trees and how the sky changes colors throughout the day. Being someone who likes to analyze the world around me, the simplicity and predictability of nature was something that allowed me to feel calm in a way I had never felt before. Knowing that the trees that stood before me had been there for years before me gave me the hope that good things could be preserved. With a community full of people who appreciated the landscape for all it provided for us, the happiness it brought us, as well as its own contribution, allowing us to breathe fresh, clean air. This fall, I watched as community members in West Orange were mourning their losses to Corona. Whether that was a loss of a loved one, an activity, or just their normal daily routine. But I began to think about how important it is during this time to stick together as a community, a lesson I had already learned at camp. When I was introduced to Tree Plenish, a youth-led non-for-profit organization that guides communities in running tree planting events to replenish a school's paper usage, I immediately began to think about how events like these have the capability to bring a community together. Giving residents the opportunity to volunteer to grow trees in others' backyards, allowing them to meet members of the community they would otherwise have never met, while also giving back by planting a tree that will provide oxygen and overall making a small but worthy contribution to defeat our climate crisis and keep our air clean. So when my generation has kids, they can run around in camp and later tell people why camp is their favorite place on earth. To make your contribution, you can get a tree or volunteer to help plant trees. There is 1 week left to purchase, so make sure you get yours quick. You can choose between the Eastern Redbud, Red Maple, and River Birch. All will look beautiful in your backyard. So far, we have sold 200 trees, which is only 50 short from our goal of 250, which will replace 50% of the paper usage at West Orange High School in a given year. Another way to contribute is by volunteering. You can choose a group to volunteer with up to 3 volunteers and 2 households. 1 member must have the ability to drive. We are following strict COVID guidelines, and masks will need to be worn at all times when in residents' backyards, while also maintaining social distancing. All you have to do to purchase your tree is go to treeplenish.org/WestOrange. The process of planning this event was a hefty but worthy endeavor, and I could have not done it without Fight for Green members and the guidance of Mr. Fick. I can't wait to see all of our work pay off on the day of the event, April 24th.
Good evening. My name is Sonfrieder Mura, and I'm a freshman at West Orange High School. There, I'm the vice president, now apparently, of the Fight for Green Club, and then I'm also a member of the New Jersey Student Sustainability Coalition, or NJSSC, which is a organization of students across the state working for environmentalist change. There, I'm a part of several campaigns, including one for the Clean Energy Equity Act, and then I coordinate the Green Amendment campaign. As the coordinator of the Green Amendment campaign, that is the biggest branch of students currently behind the push for an environmental rights amendment to our state constitution. We're a much smaller grassroots movement, of course, than Earth Hour, but we're working hard for what we believe to be an essential solution to the same problems that Earth Hour and countless other environmental movements are fighting. Lately, we've been giving a lot of training to students to teach them about the Green Amendment and give them the tools they need to become activists. I love teaching those, especially how we break down the problems which are behind the common enemy of really everyone speaking today. So I'll start there. When talking about environmental issues, people usually start with climate change, air and water pollution, loss of open space and habitat, and excessive waste, like with plastics. These are the problems that we see day to day in our communities, and we start off with them when we're teaching students. We call these things our surface level problems, and we say that because they are the symptoms of much deeper issues. Those issues are our root problems, like the fact that our legal system accepts pollution as a fact of life and tries to manage it rather than prevent it from harming our communities in the first place. Like the fact that the safety of our environment and our health depends on legislators who have a tendency to think short-term and who are influenced just as much by money and politics as they are by the needs of their constituents. Perhaps most importantly, a root problem is the piece that we need to understand, in my opinion, to understand the climate crisis and the Green Amendment alike. The fact that our human rights, the rights to breathe clean air, drink pure water, and live in a stable climate and non-toxic environments are not legal rights. In America, we take our rights for granted. The essential freedoms enshrined within the Bill of Rights are central to our national identity and the pillars sustaining our political system. Yet, despite this, few people stop to realize that our most fundamental needs have no such guarantee. Indeed, under the law, the fact that human beings are entitled to drink clean water and breathe pure air because, we need to do those things to live, exists in a lower sphere than our rights to owning property. But what use is the freedom of speech if you live in a community where breathing the air is giving you lung cancer? What use is liberty if, like my entire generation, you've lived your life with the reality that the climate crisis will make the world as you know it and the future you want for yourself almost impossible by the time you're an adult? Not much. And because that basic reality has been overlooked, all of those root problems and their symptoms are now culminating in the environmental crisis we're all facing now. It's why events like Earth Hour and all the great things our community is doing now are necessary in the first place. The Green Amendment would change that. There are two bills in the New Jersey legislature right now that would amend the Bill of Rights of our state constitution to say this, quote, "Every person has a right to a clean and healthy environment, including pure water, clean air, and ecologically healthy habitats, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic qualities of the environment. The state shall not infringe upon these rights by action or inaction. The state's public natural resources, among them its water, air, flora, fauna, climate, and public lands, are the common property of all people, including both present and future generations. The state shall serve as trustee of these resources and shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all people." That's the Green Amendment, and it will make our human rights legal rights. It won't solve all our problems, of course, but it will be a booster for everything from tackling the global climate crisis to sustainability projects right here in West Orange. The Green Amendment isn't radical, and honestly, it shouldn't even be new. It's just the acknowledgement from our legal system that, oh yeah, human beings need to breathe air, drink water, and live in non-toxic environments to not die, and the government should help us to not die. It's fundamental to our lives. Maybe that's why it's been overlooked for so long, and that's why students in New Jersey are leading the charge. And West Orange can help too. Our goal is to get the Green Amendment on the ballot this November, where all of you eligible voters out there will get to decide on it. But first, we need to get the Green Amendment past the state legislature by August, with at least 60% of each chamber voting yes. So, what am I asking you? Well, if you're an eligible voter and you see it on the ballot this fall, please vote yes. And tell your friends and your family who can vote to please vote yes. For now, like Earth Hour, the Green Amendment is largely a grassroots movement, meaning it depends on average people taking action. We need people signing our petitions, reaching out to their legislators, and spreading the word, which you can learn how to do at NJGreenAmendment.org. For the town of West Orange, the most important thing it can do is to pass a resolution in favor of the Green Amendment. Essex County has already done it. We need to be an example for other towns to show that we care about the environmental rights of West Orange citizens, show our legislators that we want them to make the Green Amendment a real priority. Events like Earth Hour are vital because they inspire action. They remind us about issues like climate change and also our own solidarity as a people and a globe. After March 27th, when you turn your lights back on, don't forget either that looming threat or the strength in our unity, and to take action. Join us, not just for the environment, but for our rights to life. Thank you.
On our program this evening, we have Christina Faust, who is a member of the West Orange Environmental Commission. She has been for many years. She is also the science teacher at Liberty Middle School. Christina is very proud to present one of her science students, Mia Peretz, to the program this evening to talk about her interesting ideas.
Thank you so much. If you're a comic book movie nerd like me, you might recall the beginning of Avengers Endgame when Captain America, in his inimitable way, tries to cheer up Black Widow by telling her that he saw a pot of whales in the Hudson River. He cited fewer ships and cleaner water as the reason. In response, Black Widow threatens to throw a peanut butter sandwich at him. Half of the world was gone, but she just wasn't having his Pollyanna routine. Now, I'm no Captain America, and we do not live in a comic book world. We have, over the last year, faced very real and unrelenting loss. Loss of friends and family, loss of economic stability. All of our lives have been changed in one way or another. It's been hard. It's been painful for everyone. And even with the light at the end of the tunnel, it's still hard and it's still painful. But the changes that have been thrust, that have been forced on us, have not all been bad. There are documented positive environmental side effects the forced changes in our daily habits have produced. These include reducing fossil fuel consumption, leading to reduced greenhouse gas emissions, reduced resource consumption, which reduces waste disposal, which improves water quality and reduces pollution, reduced transport and industrial activities, leading to improved air quality and a reduction in noise pollution. Reduced pressure on tourist destinations, which reduces ecological pressures on sensitive areas and also reduces pollution. And as we start to heal from this pandemic, as we reach for a return to normalcy, I'd like to challenge us all to take a moment and think about the changes we've made in our lifestyles and keep them, the ones that work. Let's go for more walks. Let's play more board games. Let's attend less meetings in person. Let's attend less meetings, but let's attend less meetings in person. These things are not only good for us as families and individuals, but the impact to our environment is not to be trifled with. Now, make no mistake, a year of driving less will not stop climate change. But the proof that we can alter our habits and see a measurable difference gives me hope. And on that note of hope, I'd like to introduce a student of mine who I'm extremely proud of, Miss Mia Peretz from Liberty Middle School here in West Orange. Mia is a testament to the hope for our community and our planet. And she and students like her are exactly the reason that I became a science teacher in the first place, and I'm so very proud of her. And she has some things she'd like to share with you. Mia?
Hello everyone, I'm Mia Peretz, an 8th grader at Liberty Middle School, and I have a strong passion and love for the environment and environmental science. I've had this love since I was about 7 years old, and since then my love for science has continued to grow. I always knew from a young age science was something I always wanted to do, alongside that with a love for nature and the environment. As I grew older, it hit me harder than ever that I was truly passionate about science and wanted to fulfill it as a career. With the many types of fields environmental science carries, I decided to shoot for hydrology. The reason I wanted to work with bodies of water is because whenever I hear about where our oceans and environment is headed, it makes me incredibly afraid for the future and makes me eager to do something about it. And when I realized I could work with hydrology, it brought my hopes up even more. My dream is to become a hydrologist and prevent pollution to become worse for centuries to come and future generations to fear and worry about. With new technologies being built daily, this can increase that dream into reality and push us into new environmental cleanliness. I first got into environmental science when I was around 11 years old, when I first read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, recommended by a close friend. I fell in love with the book, which turned me in love to science. When I first read the book, not only was I shocked, I was worried about how unclean our environment was and how deadly the oceans could be. It made me focused on the change that needs to be made in the world, and that change starts with me and my generation. When I started getting more serious into environmental science, I wanted to know what careers I could fulfill and practice in. During my research, I found hydrology, which intrigued me. I did some more research to see what it revolves around, where I could work, and requirements necessary with those noted down. I started showing a vast interest in my science class. When I started having daily discussions about it with my science teacher, it made me realize this is what I want and this is what I am truly passionate about. Like I noted earlier, I said I read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. While that was the #1 book that pushed and motivated my science explorations and joy, it sure hasn't been the only one. I've read books about environmental science for the past few years, such as How to Be a Good Creature by Sid Montgomery. This book revolves around a scientist who goes on an expedition following and studying emus and how we can learn from animals to take care of our own environment. Another book I read was The Winds of Change by Eugene Linden. This book I read was about earth water and why certain places, such as South Africa, are dealing with scarce supplies of water. This book helps us realize how important water is and how much we need to take care of our oceans, lakes, and other bodies of water. This book was the one that highly motivated my hydrology interest. Without these books, there is a high chance I would have ignored my science passion, so huge thanks to these authors for inspiring me constantly and daily. Whenever I talk about environmental science, a lot of eyebrows raise with curiosity lurking in people's brains and minds. The environment is such a hushed topic which has recently started shining into public light. With that being said, environmental science needs not only more recognition, but more recognition on why we should care about it. Our environment is our home, and we only have one Earth. If we keep ignoring pollution scares and harmful toxins and waste, this Earth can turn against us and at some point wipe out future generations and civilizations and become inhabitable. While scary and somewhat dramatic, it is a reality we have to face. We need to make a change now. There are so many ways to do so too, such as cutting down on plastic waste, using reusable face masks, reusable items in general. Reducing, reusing, and recycling is some of the best ways we can do it. A little really can go a long way. There are hundreds of petitions to sign online to stop the spread of contaminated pollution to infect our water and home. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, not only is environmental science a vital source of life, living, and Earth in general, it affects all of us on a daily basis. I am lucky to have this realization sooner than later because I can educate those around me and gently suggest ways to cut down on waste. Simple or challenging, big or small, if everyone can try to conserve energy, cut down on waste, reduce their plastic, which is a #1 contributing factor of pollution nowadays, and started using reusable items, we could have a huge positive impact on this planet. I hope this speech shows how much I love and care about the environment. Thank you for listening.
John Linson, when he spoke before, talked about the events that the West Orange Environmental Commission coordinates with the Department of Public Works. And Arbor Day, we have Earth Day. We have been working with Roosevelt Middle School for many years as well. This year, we have 2 students from Roosevelt talking about innovative programs that they are pursuing at Roosevelt. Violet Kohlenstein and Rihanna Giuliano are here as part of our program. So we welcome them.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rihanna Giuliano, and I'm a 7th grader at Roosevelt Middle School. And I am Violet Kohlenstein. I attend Roosevelt Middle School, and I am part of the Environmental Club. First off, I want to thank the West Orange Environmental Commission and the Fight for Green Club for presenting to us this wonderful opportunity. At the beginning of this year, I joined the Environmental Club in hopes to make a positive change in our community. I had no idea, however, about what the experience would entail. but before I knew it, I was standing on a street corner protesting for climate justice. Our club is composed of aspiring path pavers and activists, as well as nature lovers who would rather not see our forests burn and our oceans rise. We are insistent that, as Greta Thunberg famously suggests, everything needs to change, and it has to start today. As a club, our main focus has been directed more toward the younger audience. Students, kids, teenagers, partly because we are kids, we know the ropes, if you will, but also because this younger generation is the future. They will be the ones who will achieve climate justice and fight for sustainable living. We will be the ones who will change the world. Until then, we have a lot to work on. In 2016, the United States generated about 46 million US tons of plastic. Only 9% of this was recycled. Worse yet, nearly half of the product generated are single-use plastics. In our effort to fight this ever-growing issue, our club has established a West Orange public school-wide, district-wide campaign, the Plastic Art Campaign. The acronym ART, A-R-T, stands for Already Recycling That, which is exactly what we are doing. The campaign is a collection of project videos that use plastic that would normally be overlooked in fun, easy crafts for all ages. For example, a plastic water piggy bank or a bracelet made out of plastic bags. After we record these videos, we then share them with the community through our website, social media, and our school-directed emails. In connecting our community to our mission, we hope that it will trigger inspiration in youth participants to take action, and ultimately lead to reduced waste society. My fellow club member, Riya, will now shift into talking about our goals to combat climate change.
Thank you, Violet. This past Friday was the third ever global climate strike, led by 18-year-old Swedish activist Greta Thunberg. This year's theme is No More Empty Promises, which demands world leaders to take an immediate stance on the climate crisis. Our globe warms 0.13 degrees Fahrenheit per year since the past 140 years, and the United States has the second highest carbon emission ranking, with a whopping 6.5 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases produced yearly. 2 of our club members protested, along with 1,068 other protests around the world, to bring attention to this growing issue. We demonstrated along Northfield Avenue to educate the general public and to also inspire other kids to use their voices to help save our world. We need to help make our world the place we all know it can be, for us and our future generations. And each of us has a voice that can be used to make a difference and to create a greener environment. Additionally, on Friday, multiple elementary schools and our middle school participated in our Dress Down to Earth Day campaign, where students and staff were encouraged to wear earth tones to show support for the climate justice movement. Science teachers also shared an informative slideshow and video about how to lower your carbon footprint. And our club plans on having more climate strikes on Northfield Avenue at least once a month. And now I'm going to turn it over to Violet again, who will talk about our social media presence.
Thank you, Riya. So naturally, we want our club to be known and recognized for the work that we do. We want others to get involved in our goal for a greener community. So we are asking you to please follow us on social media to stay updated on the work that we are doing, have done, and are planning to do. You can find us on both Twitter and Instagram at RMS Enviro Club. You can also explore our website that we have linked on both social media pages. Through these online resources, we hope that others will get involved in our mission to shape a better and greener RMS community, and eventually West Orange as a whole.
For spring activities, we would like to regenerate the RMS community garden and composting area. We will also be planting trees around our school in mid-April. And for Earth Day, our club is planning on doing a bottle cap collecting campaign. It's been an honor speaking to all of you tonight, and we would like to leave you with this in mind. A cleaner, greener world is possible. Thank you all so much for your time, and have a great evening.
The Environmental Commission would like to thank you all for participating in this event, and we hope that the town will watch it and learn about Earth Hour. This is a booster for Earth Hour on the 27th, and please go to the website earthhour.org. You'll understand more about Earth Hour, and they're having, as I said before, a special event. There'll be a virtual tour of the world with the major cities turning out their lights, which is a very dramatic thing to be able to see on your screens. We have an active Environmental Commission. I'd like to tell you who are the members. There's been some new changes this year. I'm Mike Brick, and I've been chairman for about 7 or 8 years. Susan McCartney is with us as a 5th term councilwoman, and she is our coordinator, and we couldn't do it without her. Andrew Trank is a young man in town who is also on the planning board and on the commission. Cynthia Cumming is a very active person in town, running a food kitchen and a coordinator. Cindy Rinsler is new to the Environmental Commission, and we're glad to have her. Charles Arborside is also a new member. John Linson, who spoke today, is the town forester and a member of our commission and a town resident. Christina Faust is also a commissioner, and she's a teacher of science at the Liberty Middle School, and she has brought her students with her, and she had been a professional in the environmental world. And Svan Mura is a student at the high school, an activist for the environment, and she's an associate member of our commission. So we look forward to having you pay attention and learn about Earth Hour and do what you can do yourself to make the world a much greener planet. Thank you all, and have a good night.